Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS English, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So let's begin today's discussion by looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 10 important articles that are relevant for the mains and prelims examination. We have 6 articles that require a thorough detailed analysis and 4 small articles which are important for the prelims. Let's cover all these articles comprehensively so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. And if you guys are liking our initiatives, do support us with your likes and comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Before we start, I have a very important announcement, especially for 2026 and 2027 aspirants. Unacademy IAS English is launching another batch starting from the 10th of February. And you get a chance to enroll for this program with a 50% discount and a 6-month free extension on your IAS subscription. This will give you access to all the live classes along with the study material, test series, and as well as one-on-one mentorship and doubt resolution sessions. To avail this offer, all you have to do is enter this code IAS English so that you can get 50% discount on the course fee along with a 6-month free extension. This offer will end on the 8th of Feb, so ensure that you subscribe as soon as possible. Then before we start, please note that you have to join my official Telegram channel. You can scan the QR code. I have given the link in the description box of the video as well. Because after the session ends, I'll be sharing the PDF of this entire session on my Telegram channel. And do join our official Telegram channel as well of Unacademy IAS English. The link is provided in the video description. Because after the session, we'll conduct a daily quiz to help you revise these topics and articles. So with this, let's get started with the discussion of today's The Hindu newspaper. And let's look at the first article from page number 8. This article is important for polity, social justice, and as well as for environment and ecology. The article deals with the topic of sacred grooves or sacred groves, which hold a lot of ecological and cultural significance, especially in the tribal belt of India. Now, recently, the Supreme Court had directed the government of Rajasthan in December 2024 to notify all the sacred groves as community reserves by labeling them as forest land. So in December 2024, the Supreme Court issued this directive to the Forest Department of Rajasthan to survey all the sacred groves that are present in the state, identify them and classify them as forest land as per the provisions of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. The Supreme Court had directed the Forest Department to notify all these sacred groves and label them as community reserves, which would essentially change the management and conservation of these sacred groves. See, as of now, all the sacred groves in the country, they are conserved, managed, and protected by the local communities. There are committees set up at the local level, which are led by the local community leaders through the Gram Sabhas. The Gram Sabhas have a primary role in the conservation and protection of sacred groves as per the provisions of the FRA, the Forest Rights Act of 2006. So, Supreme Court's orders, which has been given to the Rajasthan government, is going to change this. It's going to reverse this very governance and administration of the sacred groves in India. So if the Forest Department will identify and classify all the sacred groves as forest land and designate them as community reserves, then essentially the Forest Department will gain the control to conserve and protect the sacred groves, taking the right away from the Gram Sabhas. So this ruling of the Supreme Court brings into conflict the provisions of Wildlife Protection Act on one side and the provisions of Forest Rights Act on the other side. So let's examine this topic in great detail. Let's dive a little deeper into this topic, as the topic is very, very relevant for prelims and as well as for mains. Now, if you notice here, if you look at the previous slide that I shared, you can note down the different names that are used for sacred groves in Rajasthan. In Rajasthan alone, around 25,000 plus sacred groves are present. They are known locally by the local communities by different names. And I think these names can be very important for a possible prelims question. They are known as Orans or Malwan, Diogat and Bog. These are the different local names that are used in Rajasthan by the local communities while referring to sacred groves. Now, what exactly are these sacred groves? Why are they so important? And there is a related case, the T.N. Godavarman case, where the Supreme Court had passed a historic verdict back in 1996. So you need to know what is the T.N. Godavarman case, how is it related to the management of forests in India. See, back in 1995, T.N. Godavarman, who was concerned about the destruction of local forests, including the community forests in Nilgiris by the government of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, had approached the Supreme Court asking for the rights to be given to the local community to manage and conserve the forest land. T.N. Godavarman appealed to the Supreme Court to expand the definition of forests. And in this historic case, in 1996, the Supreme Court delivered a historic judgment. Under the provisions of Forest Conservation Act 1980, the Supreme Court expanded the definition of forest land. Until then, forest land strictly meant the legal definition of forests as provided under Section 2 of Forest Conservation Act. But after the T.N. Godavarman ruling in 1996, the Supreme Court interpreted the definition of forest land as the dictionary meaning of forests and even widened the application by directing state governments and state forest departments to label any thickly wooded area, any forested area which matches the definition of a forest, the dictionary definition, to be treated as a forest land and to be notified as forest land under the Wildlife Protection Act. Now, this was a landmark ruling. It significantly expanded the definition of forests in India as it went beyond the legal definition. The Supreme Court was now directing the states to stick by the dictionary definition of forests and to recognize any thickly wooded area, any forested land outside the notified areas as forest land as well, and bring them under the conservation efforts of the government. State governments were directed by the Supreme Court to set up expert committees so that they could look into these forest lands that are newly notified and provide for conservation of these forest land. So this provision, which was brought out with the Supreme Court along with the Forest Rights Act of 2006, it essentially empowered the local communities, the tribal communities in particular, to look after their local forests, to look after the sacred groves which are so crucial, so important for the overall economic, environmental and cultural well-being of the local tribal communities and forest dwelling tribes. Now, this is where you need to know what exactly are sacred groves. Why are they so important for local communities in forested areas? See, across India, there are anywhere between 1 lakh to 10 lakh sacred groves in our country. Close to 1 million sacred groves are present. As the name itself suggests, these are forested areas which could be owned by a local community or it could be present on private land as well. But it is sacred to the local community, meaning the local community has a religious, spiritual connection to these forest lands present on community land or privately owned land. Many times in sacred groves, there will be temples, monasteries, or other pilgrim sites present, or there could be burial grounds which are considered to be sacred and revered by the local community. So there is a lot of cultural, social, and economic connection that the local communities have with the sacred groves. So these sacred groves are protected by customary laws of the local community. Any form of exploitation of sacred groves is prohibited under the local community laws and customary laws. The tribal communities and indigenous groups which reside in the area, they don't exploit the sacred groves as they treat them as sacred. They worship the sacred groves, except for limited usage, such as basic grazing and herding of their cattle, or collection of medicinal plants which are grown and cultivated in sacred groves. Apart from that, no other exploitation is allowed. It is treated as a taboo. in customary laws at the local community level, any violation of the sacred grove is strictly prohibited, and local community strictly follows this commitment. They conserve and protect the forest land because their overall well-being, their cultural well-being, their economic well-being is dependent on these sacred groves and community forests. So they take an active effort to protect and conserve these forests, and they even connect these groves with the spirits, the gods that they worship. You might be aware that local communities often have a unique form of faith which could be different from mainstream religion. Especially forest-dwelling communities, they often worship nature and environment itself. They worship the forest, they worship the mountains, the animals, the trees, the birds, etc. So inside these sacred groves, deities would be set up to pay tribute to these gods and to practice their faith. And that's why in many parts of India, these sacred groves are associated with God, spirituality, and traditional faith and religion. For example, in Karnataka, these sacred groves are known as Devara Kadu, the forest in which the god resides. Similarly, across India, from Chhattisgarh to Maharashtra to Meghalaya to Odisha, there are sacred groves present, and they are known by different local names. Now, I want you guys to clearly make a note of this point, because this could also be very important for your prelims exam. UPSC might ask you in prelims the different local names that are used to refer to sacred groves. For example, in Chhattisgarh, Odisha, in Meghalaya, there are different local names that are used. So please make a note of this and be prepared for a possible prelims question on this point. So these sacred groves are of great value to the local community. They worship them, they respect them, they protect them, and they play a direct role in conserving the sacred groves as well. Now, this local right of the community had been recognized by the Forest Rights Act. The Forest Rights Act basically gave recognition to these rights of the local community to conserve their habitat. And the Gram Sabhas in particular were recognized as a statutory authority to lead the conservation efforts. So this was the provision that existed. But if you look at Wildlife Protection Act 1972, which was amended in 2002, it introduced a concept known as community reserves. The Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 identifies and recognizes the protected areas of our country, such as national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. So through an amendment in 2002, a new category of forests were recognized known as community reserves. And to conserve and protect these community reserves, certain provisions were provided under this law. So as per this provision, local community leaders and individuals could take part in the conservation effort in collaboration with the Forest Department. But they had to abide by all the regulations, the restrictions of the Wildlife Protection Act. The community members and the individuals who are responsible for managing and protecting these community reserves, they would have to ensure all the provisions of Wildlife Protection Act is strictly followed. For example, they will have to tackle any fires which might be reported, which might turn into a wildfire. They will have to tackle hunting and poaching of the animals. They have to protect the species and play an active role in conserving the local habitat. For this purpose, the Forest Department would set up a Community Reserve Management Committee, which would come under the Chief Wildlife Warden of the State Forest Department. And these Community Reserve Management Committees, they would include at least 5 members from the local Gram Sabha, giving the primary role to the Gram Sabha leaders, along with representation from the Forest Department and some experts. If a community forest was present on individual land, on private property, the landowner would be part of this committee, along with a representative from the Forest Department and experts who would collaborate together to conserve such forest land. So, Wildlife Protection Act provided for this provision where the State Forest Department would play a pivotal role. It would bring the Gram Sabha leaders together, but management of community reserves has been under the State Forest Department, not with the communities. Though communities are involved, though Gram Sabha leaders are involved and local communities are involved at the individual level, eventually community reserves as per Wildlife Protection Act are managed through the State Forest Department. Now, this is where the contradiction arises, between Forest Rights Act of 2006 and the provisions of Wildlife Protection Act. According to Forest Rights Act, the whole purpose of Forest Rights Act was to secure the traditional rights, the indigenous rights to the local communities, and restore those traditional rights back to them. Forest Rights Act clearly provided that Gram Sabhas are the statutory bodies to decide upon the conservation of local forests. So this included community reserves, sacred groves, etc. So local Gram Sabha leaders, right, they would take the leadership role to constitute the Community Forest Resource Management Committee. They would not only play a direct role in the conservation of the local forests, but they would actually protect their own rights, their own cultural rights, social and economic rights. They would maintain their limited access to harvest the medicinal plants and to derive the medicinal benefits from these forests. They would exercise their traditional rights, including grazing, herding, and basic subsistence farming, along with collection of minor forest produce, which is sustainably done by these local communities. So these traditional rights were recognized, and Gram Sabha was recognized as the statutory authority to conserve and protect such forests. Now this is where the recent ruling of the Supreme Court creates a conflict between the Forest Rights Act on one side and the Wildlife Protection Act on the other side. Because the Supreme Court has ruled that State Forest Department of Rajasthan should identify all the sacred groves, declare them as forest land, and notify them as community reserves under Wildlife Protection Act, which means Forest Department will get control of these sacred groves. Forest Department will constitute those Community Forest Conservation Committee. It will include some Gram Sabha members, but overall control would be under the Chief Wildlife Warden. State Forest Departments will exercise the control, and the communities would be sidelined. Whereas under Forest Rights Act, currently, Gram Sabhas have the primary ownership over these community forests, including sacred groves, and local Gram Sabha officials and the local community members are directly involved in conserving, protecting, and regenerating these forest lands. Studies have established that local communities are linked and dependent on these community forests and sacred groves. Anthropologists agree that the development of various communities has been dependent on the availability of these resources and the ability of the community to exercise rights and have access to these sacred groves and forests. As I said, their cultural, social, and economic well-being is dependent on them. So the Supreme Court ruling, even though it is well intended in order to protect the sacred groves and the community forests, the decision to give the control to the State Forest Department could have wide ramification. This could have a nationwide impact, because the ruling of December will not apply only for Rajasthan. This would be extended across India, where all state forest departments will be asked to take ownership of the sacred groves. And this could limit the rights of the local communities which are connected to these sacred groves. So that is the essential question which is being brought up by this article. It brings out the conflict between the provisions of Forest Rights Act and the Wildlife Protection Act. Just to summarize, Forest Rights Act gives the right to the Gram Sabhas to manage community forests, including sacred groves. Whereas community reserves that are set up under Wildlife Protection Act gives the right to the State Forest Department to set up these local communities, which might involve Gram Sabha members, but eventually the overall control over these community forests would be with the State Forest Department. So Supreme Court's ruling with regard to Rajasthan in December, it threatens to take away the rights of the Gram Sabhas under the Forest Rights Act and give those rights to State Forest Department under Wildlife Protection Act. So that is where the concern comes up. So take up this practice question for your mains answer writing practice. Based on what we have discussed, use those points and the structure that I have followed to build a good answer, and please post your answers in the comment section below. Now let's move on to the next article. Let's look at article number 2. We have a very interesting editorial on page number 6 regarding the status of the Indian economy. Because tomorrow, on the 7th of February, that is Friday, RBI's Monetary Policy Committee is all set to undertake a review of the monetary policy, and there is a lot of expectation that there might be some changes in the rates, in the repo rate and in the other policy rates, which are used by the Monetary Policy Committee to manage liquidity in the economy. See, right now, Monetary Policy Committee is facing a big challenge in front of it because growth on one hand has been stagnating. Growth has declined in general over the last few months. Parallelly, inflation has remained persistently high. So this presents a very difficult challenge for the Monetary Policy Committee. The Government of India, the Finance Ministry in particular, has even indicated that one reason why growth has stagnated is because the Monetary Policy Committee has been unwilling to lower the rates. The government wants more liquidity to enter the market so that there is easy money available for investors to drive investments and thus create demand and consumption. But RBI has resisted the pressure. It has maintained the rates because it has an obligation to maintain inflation levels as well. Now, if you look at the Monetary Policy Committee, which was set up a few years ago, it has been given an inflation target of 4% with a range of plus or minus 2%. The Monetary Policy Committee has a legal mandate to maintain inflation levels at 4% with a range of plus or minus 2%. That is within the range of 2 to 6%, with the ideal inflation being 4%. But in the last few months, inflation has been hovering at 5 to 6%, which poses a big challenge for the RBI. And I hope you know that promoting growth and controlling inflation are opposites of each other. They are inversely proportional to each other. If RBI tries to promote growth by releasing more liquidity into the market by lowering the rates, the excess money supply could trigger inflation, and vice versa. If it tries to control inflation by sucking up liquidity, by increasing the rates, it will crowd out investment, leaving very less funds for investments, which can affect growth opportunities. Now, right now, the Monetary Policy Committee is going through a change in itself because there is a new RBI governor. Recently, Shaktikant Das was replaced by the new governor, and within the Monetary Policy Committee, there are new members being appointed. So, given these changes, Monetary Policy Committee faces a lot of challenges. So, you need to understand the composition as well, the composition of Monetary Policy Committee from a prelims perspective. The Monetary Policy Committee consists of 6 key officials. It's headed by the RBI governor with 2 officials from RBI, including the deputy governor and another senior official responsible for the monetary policy within the RBI. So in total, RBI itself has 3 representatives, including the governor of the central bank. Apart from these 3, there will be 3 experts appointed by the government. 3 experts appointed by the government. So decisions are taken by consensus through a process of voting, and eventually if there is a tie, the majority, if there is no majority, if there is a tie, then finally RBI governor as a chairperson of the committee will cast the vote to break the tie. The tiebreaker lies with the chairperson, that is the RBI governor himself. So right now, RBI governor and the Monetary Policy Committee is facing a big challenge because globally there are several challenges that are affecting the Indian economy. I am sure you are aware that Indian rupee has been depreciating rapidly in comparison to the dollar. The rupee has fallen to alarming levels, breaching the 87 mark, and there are every possibility where the rupee might slip below the 90 mark as well, where $1 could appreciate to the range of 90 rupees and above. And this has some implications for the Indian economy, very serious implications. Though it might benefit Indian exports by making them more competitive and cheaper, it has some serious implications for our macroeconomic factors. Now, the big concern here would be the global developments which are happening. For example, if you look at United States, the tariff war that Donald Trump has unleashed, it has already started disrupting global supply chains as companies and investors are moving their investments, looking for alternate supply chains. And this has already shaken up the global economy. This has led to a flight of capital back into the US, as Trump has declared that he will make America great again, as he prioritizes the conservative inward-looking policies, right? So Donald Trump's policies, economic policies, the tariff wars he has launched against many countries like China, Canada. He's threatening tariffs against European Union as well. This could lead to a major shift in investment patterns. It could lead to a flight of capital back towards the US. And that represents a bigger concern for the value of the rupee. So keeping all these concerns in mind, the RBI has to carefully come out with a well thought out monetary policy tomorrow. On one hand, it has to boost growth as well. As experts have pointed out, one best way to boost growth is to promote demand, to boost consumption, demand. You basically have to ensure there is more money available in the hands of the people. Right? If people have more disposable income in their hands, that is when people will be more willing to spend. They would be willing to spend not only on essentials, but as well as on other commodities which will create demand in the economy, driving growth and bringing fresh investments into the markets. Right now, we are witnessing a stagnation of investments as demand and consumption, especially in the urban areas, has fallen drastically. Demand in rural areas has been stagnant as well. So experts, even within the RBI, have been suggesting that measures have to be undertaken immediately to put more money in the hands of the people so that we can drive demand and thus boost consumption, which is a sure short way to revive growth and push for higher growth numbers. Because the revised GDP estimates are quite alarming. India's GDP growth has been revised to 6.4% for the current fiscal, the 2024-25 fiscal. We might witness a further slowdown where GDP growth might even drop to below 6%. So given these upcoming challenges, the monetary policy of the RBI would be crucial. It will be closely watched. So we will have some developments tomorrow and we will cover this again. So right now, this is what you need to understand from this article. Now let's look at another important article from the front page. US President Donald Trump has been in the news for controversial reasons. Donald Trump has announced a controversial Gaza plan where he has stated that he would like to evict Palestinians from Gaza Strip and US would like to take ownership of Gaza Strip to reconstruct and develop the Gaza Strip. Now, this controversial statement by Donald Trump was made when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was visiting the US to meet the new US president. So this policy that Trump has announced, it has deep implications for the region. See, whether Trump is serious or not, whether US will eventually implement this or not, doesn't matter. The very fact that Trump could make such statements, which is seen as highly divisive and controversial, which has been criticized by almost every other country, it has clearly shown that such policies of the US, where it is aligning with Israeli interests, where it is going to the extent of threatening Palestinian rights to have their own country, is quite alarming, quite dangerous, as it is a serious breach of international law. See, Trump is not new to controversy. Trump has already made controversial statements regarding other territories as well, such as Greenland. He has said he'll take back Greenland from Denmark. He has also pushed Canada to join US as the 51st state of the United States. He has even renamed Gulf of Mexico. He has said that Panama Canal should be taken back by the US. So this approach of Donald Trump and the new American administration is essentially an imperialistic interference that we are seeing around the world. This is how colonial powers used to interfere and impose themselves on other countries, on other regions. So Trump's approach of taking over new territories and using coercive methods to threaten other countries, to force them to change their behavior, is something that is being criticized around the world. This could completely shift the world order itself. And this has deep implications for India as well. Because Trump's policies, which are focused on America first, making America great again, his whole presidential campaign was built on the MAGA campaign, making America great again, to bring back manufacturing into US, to levy tariffs against other countries, to deport all the illegal migrants, and to restore America's supremacy in the global world order. Now, this approach of Donald Trump, right, which is not according to diplomatic standards, is what concerns many countries, and especially the Gaza plan that has been announced has deep implications for West Asia region, including India's position on the Palestinian issue. Now let's understand what exactly has Donald Trump proposed and how does this affect the Gaza Strip, Palestinian rights? How does it affect West Asia, and what would be India's stand on this particular issue? Let's take a quick look. See, Donald Trump has basically stated that Gaza Strip has been decimated. To be fair to Trump, he's absolutely right that Gaza Strip has been war ravaged, destroyed by the conflict, not just the last 15 months, but even before that, Gaza Strip has seen decades of conflict between Hamas, the extremist organization, and Israel. Repeatedly, Israel has used disproportionate force, especially since October 2023, since the Gaza war began. Israel has been using disproportionate force, bombing most of the Gaza Strip, destroying the buildings and infrastructure. Then Hamas, on the other hand, has exploited Palestinian civilians to create terrorist infrastructure in Gaza by digging tunnels, by using civilians and civilian buildings as shelters for terror activities. So these activities by Hamas and as well as by Israel has eventually affected Palestinian civilians. Today, most of Gaza has been flattened. Israel has dropped thousands of tons of explosives. There are several undetonated ordnances that are lying around, which are extremely dangerous. Buildings are about to collapse. There is no water, no electricity, no basic essentials available. So Gaza has become unlivable. And as you know, Gaza is considered as a open-air prison, the largest open-air prison in the world, with close to 2.6 million Palestinians trapped in the open-air prison, which is blockaded by Israel from all the sides. So Donald Trump is absolutely right when he says that people of Palestine in Gaza Strip, they have no future ahead, right? They have seen war and conflict, nothing other than that. There is absolute destruction that is present here, right? Buildings and basic infrastructure has collapsed. Basic essential services are not available. There are bombs and explosives and ordnances lying around which are not exploded, which could pose a threat to civilians in the coming days as well. So in this regard, Trump is right that Gaza needs to be cleaned out. Gaza needs to be rebuilt, reconstructed. But what Trump is suggesting is that Palestinians should leave Gaza. That Gaza has to be vacated. Then US will take ownership of Gaza Strip to reconstruct and redevelop and to clean out Gaza Strip. This is where Trump's statements become highly controversial, even insensitive. Because when the war is going on, where lakhs of people, innocent civilians, women and children are suffering under the disproportionate use of force by Israel, where Israel stands accused of committing human rights violations and war crimes, to make such a statement and to say that Gaza would be developed as a Riviera of the Middle East, something like a new Dubai, and to say that world investors will come in and resorts will be built, amusement parks will be built, that is pure insensitivity and borders on inhumanity as well. That is where the controversy comes up. Because see, first of all, Gaza Strip doesn't belong to US and it doesn't belong to Israel either. Right? Neither Israel nor US have the right to give away Gaza to someone else or to evict Palestinians from their land. So this goes all the way back to the Israel-Palestine issue. If you look at the creation of Israel, right, the two-state plan, the two-state solution which was proposed by the United Nations was largely a colonial imperial imposition. Then it was Britain which had backed the Zionist movement, the radical Jewish nationalist movement, to create a Jewish homeland by returning Jews back to Jerusalem. Yes, historically, Jews have been the most persecuted community. Historically, Jews were driven out here from the Jerusalem region, from the Holy Land, primarily because of the Roman expeditions and several outside invasions and the religious wars that took place here. So, since ancient times, yes, Jews have been driven out, and in Europe as well, wherever Jews took refuge, they have been targeted throughout medieval times and modern times. Who doesn't remember the deadly Holocaust genocide that Nazi Germany committed against the Jews under Adolf Hitler? So definitely Jews have been one of the most persecuted communities in the world historically, but doesn't mean that foreign powers like Britain and now US get to determine how the land would be managed and administered. During the World Wars, the British government, through the Balfour Declaration in 1917, made a commitment to the Zionist movement that they would help the Zionists to create a Jewish homeland on religious lines. Eventually, after winning the First World War, the Ottomans were defeated, who controlled all these areas of the Middle East, and this area came under British mandate, while the rest of the region of Levant, including Syria, Iraq, came under French mandate. This part of Palestine that you see today, which is Israel and the Palestinian territories, came under the British mandate. And eventually the British encouraged the Zionists and enabled the return of the Jews. So the Holocaust of the 1930s, 1940s further enabled the return of the Jews towards Jerusalem, leading to widespread communal clashes. Because see, over centuries, time had changed and the reality had changed in Palestine. Now this had become the land, the homeland of Palestinians, the Arab Muslims, right? So to return the Jews forcibly without consulting the locals and to impose this upon the Palestinians through a British mandate was pure imperial colonial imposition. And that is what led to the communal clashes between the Jews and the Arab Muslims in 1940s. In fact, many countries, including India, did not support the creation of Israel in the initial period in 1946-47. Right? Most of the former colonies who were against imperialism, colonialism, they didn't back the creation of Israel because a country was being formed on religious lines. Forcefully, a community was being pushed out, snatched off its own right, and outside community was being settled based on historical wrongs. You can't correct historical wrongs by committing more mistakes and more wrongs in the modern time, right? That is exactly what happened when Western powers led by Britain enabled the Zionist movement to create Israel on religious grounds. That's why India and many countries from Africa, Asia, Latin America, they never supported the religious partition that was done here. In fact, we weren't even supporting two-state plan initially. But later, as the communal violence increased, as tensions became very serious, the only viable alternative was to create two states, Israel for the Jewish people and a Palestine for the Arab Muslims. Eventually, most countries came around to accept the two-state plan in 1947, and everybody was hoping that two countries would be created to live side by side, something similar to what happened with India and Pakistan. But before Palestine could be created, Israel took away the right, snatched this right from Palestinians by unilaterally declaring independence. In 1948, Israel violated the two-state plan, went against international law, and unilaterally declared independence with the backing of Britain, US, and other Western powers, triggering the first Arab-Israel war. The neighboring Arab states would attack Israel to protect Palestinians and their rights, and this led to the displacement of Palestinians who became refugees in the region. Palestinians till date refer to this event as the Nakba, the Great Catastrophe, as lakhs of Palestinians were driven out from here, forced to take refuge in neighboring countries like Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. Even today, lakhs of Palestinian refugees are sheltered in these neighboring countries who are looked after by a UN organization known as UNRWA. So, over the years, Israel has slowly annexed, occupied Palestinian territory as well. It never allowed Palestine to be formed as a separate country. Be it West Bank, Gaza Strip, and the areas around it, which was supposed to be Palestine, those territories have been taken away and they are under the illegal occupation of Israel as recognized by the global community. So upon that, to suggest that Gaza Strip should be cleaned out of Palestinians, and Trump has suggested that neighboring countries like Egypt and Jordan, they should take responsibility of Palestinians so that US can take ownership of Gaza and redevelop and reconstruct Gaza. This plan is absolute utter nonsense as named by the UN Special Rapporteur. It's not my words. The UN Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, has strongly criticized Trump's policy, calling it utter nonsense. So this statement by the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine tells you everything about Trump's policy. Egypt and Jordan have rejected these claims. Egypt and Jordan have never accepted that they will take all the Palestinians from Gaza Strip and West Bank. So Trump has unilaterally made this announcement saying that he will convince Egypt and Jordan, meaning he'll threaten them, coerce them with tariffs and cut off of aid and assistance, because both countries are heavily dependent on American aid and support. But such imperial imposition, right, one-sided coercive imposition will never really solve this problem. Moreover, Palestinians are not just looking at the development of Gaza. They don't want a new business hub or an industrial cluster to come up. They primarily want their rights to be restored, their right to have their own country to be restored. And this is what most countries believe in, including India. India has an ideological commitment to support the two-state plan. That's why even the closest friends of US have criticized this policy of Donald Trump. Even Australia, European countries, Saudi Arabia, the leading Muslim power of the Sunni world in the region, they have openly criticized Trump's policy, stating that they will not back out from supporting Palestine. They will not allow this Gaza plan to be implemented. What is curious and interesting is that India, as of now, has not taken an official stand on this, right? Historically, India has always supported the two-state plan, supporting the right of Palestinians to have their own country. So India, without hesitation, should take a stand as well, because even the closest allies of US, like Australia, European countries, Saudi Arabia, have openly condemned Trump's policy, stating their support for Palestine. So we need to wait and watch how India would react. As of now, according to latest developments, we hadn't got a statement from the Indian side, but most likely India will take the same stand. Though we will try to balance it out with our interests with Israel and US, right? We will not support any such plan, and we will reiterate our commitment to the two-state plan. This has been India's ideological commitment. So that is what you need to know about this development. Let's see what developments happen in the coming days. So please take up this practice question. How this controversial Gaza plan will impact the region and the interests of India. Next, Trump is very much in the news. Trump has started implementing the harsh deportation of illegal migrants as he had promised in his electoral campaign, and India has started receiving the illegal migrants back. Yesterday, a US military transport plane, which you see here, the C-17 Globemaster of the US Air Force, landed at Amritsar, bringing more than 100 Indian illegal migrants back. Now, this is in line with Trump's electoral commitment. If you look at Trump's political ideology and the election campaign that he has built, not just now, even during his first term, he has always taken a firm stand against illegal migration, blaming most of America's problems on illegal migrants. Again, to be fair to Trump, Trump has a valid point. US has indeed received massive inflow of illegal migrants from South America, Latin America region, right, through the Mexico border, as well as from the northern borders through Canada, and even from across West Asia, Africa region, and especially from India. In recent years, India has become one of the big sources of illegal migrants into United States. Even from other Asian countries like Philippines, Vietnam, etc. There are a lot of illegal migrants who enter the US. So US has become home to millions of illegal migrants. No country can take this burden. A large flow of illegal migrants, a persistent, consistent flow, will eventually become an economic burden and a social burden, leading to social problems as well, right? So any country has a sovereign right to act against illegal migrants. Those who enter the country illegally without valid documents, without a valid visa, they can be detained and evicted and deported from the country. Every country has that right. So what US is doing is nothing new or unprecedented, or it's not illegal as well. US has every right to deport illegal migrants, but now the question is the manner in which the Trump administration has been trying to do this. It's not that deportation has been done only now. You might have seen in the last few days, US has deported illegal migrants to Colombia. But if you look at the manner in which it was done, that's where the questions come up. Because last year as well, even under Biden administration, large-scale deportations happened, mass deportations were done. Data from Department of Homeland Security and Immigrations and Customs Authority of the US shows that 165,000 illegal migrants were deported last year. Many hundred illegal migrants were sent to India as well. But it never became global headlines because it was done by following the basic humane methods and by respecting diplomatic relations with the other countries. But now Donald Trump, who has made a big electoral point, because throughout his presidential campaign, one of his commitment was to evict the illegal migrants. He kept referring to illegal migrants as aliens, as parasites who had destroyed the American economy, though they have contributed to American economy. Though they have entered illegally, eventually all the manual work, the labor that is needed in agriculture, for example, has been taken over by illegal migrants. In many ways, America's agricultural farms and other manual tasks are basically carried out by illegal migrants. So in a way, illegal migrants have become the backbone of the American economy, whether Trump likes it or not. But again, as I said, Trump has a valid point that any country has a right to evict illegal migrants. They're not wrong about this. So this is where the method in which the deportation has been done comes into question. If you look at the recent tussle between US and Colombia, Colombia was willing to accept the illegal migrants, but the method in which it was done is what led to opposition from Colombia. Donald Trump started sending the illegal migrants in military planes. Now, this is a very harsh method. Illegal migrants were not only detained, but they were handcuffed, they were pushed around, they were denied basic amenities, they were treated almost like criminals. So this instigated Colombia. Colombia said, will not accept these illegal migrants, and the methods are not acceptable according to Colombia. But Donald Trump threatened Colombia with sanctions and tariffs and forced Colombia to accept them. So essentially, by using military planes which are more expensive than commercial flights, Trump administration is trying to send out a message, right? This is a PR stunt essentially. So by using military planes, by using harsher methods like handcuffing the illegal migrants, by pushing them around, and by denying them basic amenities like water, sanitation, etc., United States is sending out a message not only to its own domestic audience, to the vote bank of Donald Trump, but also to the global audience that illegal migration will not be tolerated. It's a message, a symbolic message to other countries, governments, to tackle the problem of illegal migration. So that is why the usage of military planes, right? This is something which is very different. Usually we have not seen this happen. In the past, many countries have deported. Even India has a practice of deporting illegal migrants to Bangladesh, Myanmar, etc. But we never use harsh military methods. There are basic human rights applicable for illegal migrants as well, right? You can't simply handcuff them, mistreat them, or treat them in an inhuman manner and use harsh military methods. But US is deliberately trying to do this under Trump administration to send out this symbolic message. In a way, it appeases the vote bank of Donald Trump to his voters who supported his policy against illegal migration. It clearly shows what Donald Trump is doing. It shows that Donald Trump is delivering on his electoral commitment to the domestic audience in the US. Plus, it sends out a strong message to foreign governments that they need to tackle this problem or else their citizens will be treated like this. So this is where you need to understand the extent of Indian illegal migrants present in the US. There's a very important topic present here. See, in the United States, today the Indian community, the diaspora community, has become more than 3 million strong. Since 1950s, 60s, there has been a lot of migration from India, right? Most of them have been legal migrants. They have taken the legal route to study and work in the United States. Many have gone as students under the F visa category. Many have gone for work opportunities under H-1B visa and eventually got the green card and permanent residency in the US. So throughout 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there has been a lot of migration from India, but most of them were legal migrants with a percentage of illegal migrants. So this migration from India to US has increased exponentially in the last 3 decades. Along with the rise in number of Indian students and workers who are going through the legal route, there has been a substantial increase in the entry of illegal migrants as well. Out of the 3 million plus Indians, data shows that there are close to 33 to 35 lakh Indians. That is the strength of the Indian community. So out of this, there might be a number of illegal migrants, and reports indicate the number of illegal migrants from India could be anywhere between 2 lakhs to upwards of 7 lakhs. Department of Homeland Security believes that there could be 7 lakh Indian illegal migrants, right? Indian data also indicates that this could be the real number. There could be many undocumented illegal migrants as well, which might take the number close to 1 million. So this is where the problem arises, especially in last few years. There has been large-scale illegal migration from India, not only towards United States, but towards every other developed country. Even European countries have the same problem. They've been complaining to India that there has been a huge surge in illegal migration, especially post-pandemic. From 2018, 2019 onwards, they have witnessed a massive surge in Indian illegal migrants entering their country. European countries like Austria, Belgium, Poland, UK, France, Germany, they've all been complaining about the large-scale illegal migration from India. In United States alone, in the last few years, close to 90,000 to 1 lakh illegal migrants every year from India have been detained by the American authorities. Imagine if this is the number of the detained illegal migrants, how many might have snuck through? Now the question is, why are Indians so desperate to get out of the country? What should India do about this? This is a big question, not just for our foreign policy, but for our developmental policies as well, our economic policies as well. Because clearly there are 2 reasons why Indians are leaving the country. One, out of desperation. They need better opportunities. They're not finding jobs. They don't have good education skills in our country. They're desperately moving out to seek better opportunities, a better life in another country at any cost, at any risk. The other reason is the fantasy, the aspiration of staying abroad, residing abroad, working abroad, especially in some states, in some cultures, right? Residing abroad, working abroad has become a huge cultural phenomena which brings societal pressure as well. So that is why the biggest contributors for illegal migration are states such as Gujarat, Punjab, and Haryana. Even Andhra Pradesh and Telangana to a large extent. These states are the primary contributors, right? It's not just the unemployed youth in Punjab and Haryana, even well-off communities from Gujarat. They are spending lakhs of rupees, almost 1 crore rupees, paying these middlemen and traffickers to smuggle them into US and other developed countries in Europe because they are not able to get valid visas. They are not able to fulfill the visa requirements. They may not have the education or skills or employment or the income status. So what they do, they take the illegal route, right? If you've seen movies like Donkey, which shows the donkey routes through which Indian illegal migrants are trafficked into other countries. They take a very risky route through multiple countries to reach South America or Central America, from where they are pushed into Mexico and they have to snuggle across the border from Mexico into US, or they are dropped into Canada where they have to cross the borders from Canada into US. So both sides, the conditions are very risky. People have lost their lives. Few months ago, a Gujarati family lost their lives when they were trying to cross over from Canada to US in the frigid conditions. From the Mexico border as well, many Indians have lost their lives. So this is a very serious issue which has come up. Even countries like Australia in West Asia as well are reporting similar trends, where illegal migration from India has increased by very large numbers. So this points towards serious economic and social problems in our country as well. If we don't create enough jobs and education opportunities, skilling opportunities, improve the standard of living for Indians in the country, for the youth, if you don't create that aspiration, right, people will be desperate to get out. People will be desperate to seek better opportunities abroad. And honestly, many of them don't see a difference between legal and illegal migration. Honestly, studies have shown that many people from Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana belt, from where the highest illegal migration is seen, they don't know the difference between legal and illegal migration. They think somehow they have to enter the country. They don't know the legal consequences. They don't know what consequences will await them. So there is a need to spread that awareness as well. There is a need to crack down on the middlemen, these travel agents and consultancy firms which are duping Indians, taking lakhs of rupees from them in the name of a foreign job and tricking them to go to other countries as illegal migrants. This is how Indians were recruited into Russian army to fight in the Ukraine war. This is how thousands of Indians have been duped by traffickers and middlemen and travel agencies to work for cyber criminal cartels in Golden Triangle region in Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar and Thailand. So this is a pressing problem that the government needs to address immediately, as it is affecting not just thousands of lives but lakhs of Indians. Their safety, their well-being is a responsibility of the Indian government. So as of now, India is working with the US, accepting the responsibility, because yes, India is at fault, just like other countries where illegal migrants are entering the US. Just like we don't appreciate illegal migration from Bangladesh, we expect Bangladesh to take responsibility. Accordingly, we would have to take responsibility for this, and India has agreed to take back around 18,000 illegal migrants as of now. So this is going to be an ongoing exercise. In the coming months, thousands of Indian illegal migrants are going to be deported. But at the same time, India should not budge under Trump's pressure and coercive tactics. India should stand up for the human rights of our illegal migrants. See, we are correct in accepting the responsibility and in taking back illegal migrants. That is our responsibility at the end of the day. But we should not tolerate any kind of violation of the basic rights that should be given to illegal migrants. Using military planes, using harsh methods, handcuffing them and pushing them around and denying basic amenities and facilities to them. This is purely inhuman by the American authorities. This is something India should stand up against and oppose such policies, and we need to use the diplomatic channels to raise this voice. I'm pointing this out because next week, Prime Minister Modi is traveling to United States to meet Donald Trump. So this issue has to be brought up. As of now, Trump also has been slightly easygoing with India. Unlike others, he has not threatened tariffs against India as of now at least. And specifically, Trump has not called out India for the illegal migration, right? So India needs to work the diplomatic channels, use the leverage we have, because India is a big buyer of American weapons. US relies on India to counter China in the Indo-Pacific. That is the leverage we have. we need to use those leverages and push US to respect the human rights of illegal migrants, to not mistreat our nationals. This is something we should never tolerate. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know your views and opinions about why Indians are going to other countries as illegal migrants. Why is it happening in such large numbers? What do you think should be the solution? And do you think what US is doing is correct? The method in which it's being done, is it correct or not? Right? Please let me know in the comments. Now let's quickly look at the smaller articles in today's paper. We have few smaller articles. On page 10, we have an article related to internal security, specifically the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, there have been a number of infiltration attempts by Pakistani-based terrorists to sneak into J&K across the line of control to carry out terror attacks. Especially in last 2 years, the Jammu region has become very active and has seen several terror attacks, and even recently, former military officers, migrant workers from other states have been targeted by the terrorists who are sponsored by Pakistan. So Union Home Minister Amit Shah, who has taken stock of the situation, he was addressing all the security agencies which are countering terrorism in J&K. He has pointed out that there is a direct link between narcotics, smuggling of drugs, and the terror network and the infiltration that is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. So this point raised by the Union Home Minister brings up a very important concept in internal security. Wherever organized crime flourishes, organized crime such as drug trafficking, narcotics trafficking, it is directly linked with terrorism and insurgency. There exists a direct connection between the two. In fact, both of them are linked with money laundering as well. Money laundering, organized crime such as drug trafficking, and terror financing. These three activities are interlinked and connected and dependent on each other. So Home Minister Amit Shah is absolutely right that narcotics smuggling from across the border, from Pakistan, there's a lot of drugs which is smuggled into India. This happens through Rajasthan, Punjab route as well, but even through Jammu and Kashmir across line of control. Especially Afghan drugs are smuggled through these organized criminal cartels like the Dawood Ibrahim cartel and other drug cartels which are supported by Pakistani agencies such as the ISI. Pakistani state agencies are involved. The ISI is known to work with such criminal cartels and is involved in smuggling drugs. So narcotic trafficking, the narcotic network, is enabling the infiltration in J&K because these smugglers will be well versed with the terrain and the routes. There are few underground tunnels as well along the LOC which smugglers and infiltrators use to enter into India. So Home Minister Amit Shah has urged all the security agencies to act collectively. He has asked Intelligence Bureau, J&K Police, Indian Army and the other agencies involved in handling the situation to effectively tackle not just the infiltration but narcotics networks as well, because there is a dependency and a connection between them. Next, we have another security related article on the same page. Finance Ministry has warned government officials and it has prohibited them from using AI models of foreign origin. As you know, large language models, AI assistant bots like ChatGPT, the Chinese DeepSeek, which made a big disruption recently. These models have become widely popular, right? With people around the world using it, employing it for different purposes. Of course, there are many advantages of using assistants like ChatGPT and DeepSeek. It can automate several tasks, simplify and bring efficiency and replace manual work. But however, using such AI models which are foreign based, where the data could be stored on foreign servers, is extremely risky, especially when it comes to government data and government information. So Finance Ministry has flagged the security risk. Finance Ministry has ordered the government officials in the Finance Ministry to not use these AI models, be it the American ChatGPT or DeepSeek from China, on official computers for official business, because government information is highly classified. And if these AI models are harnessing data, right, if they are harvesting data from India, transferring it to foreign servers where foreign governments might have control over it, foreign intelligence agencies might have access to it, that remains a big security risk. It is a concern about data security, data confidentiality. This has national security implications. That's why Finance Ministry has issued an order prohibiting senior government officials from using these AI models on their official computers. In fact, recently DOPT, the Department of Personnel and Training, conducted training programs as well for senior secretaries and officers of the Government of India to train them about the emerging threats from the AI domain, to ensure that government offices, government computers and government data is protected and foreign countries don't get hold of sensitive data. That's why this article is relevant. Now let's take a quick look at the prelim section. On page 4, we have an article that refers to state election commissions. The 31st annual conference of state election commissioners was held in Madhya Pradesh, where the election commissioners have come together from the state level to discuss the challenges in conducting local elections. They have discussed how technology can be adopted to efficiently conduct local elections to panchayats and municipal bodies. So in this context, you should know about state election commissions. State election commissions are constitutional bodies. So please take down the basic facts. You can expect a prelims question here. When the 73rd, 74th Constitutional Amendment Act was introduced, setting up Panchayati Raj institutions and municipal bodies, which introduced the third tier of governance with constitutional status, Article 243K was brought out, which provides for a state election commission to conduct elections to panchayats. Similarly, for municipalities, under Article 243ZA, right, State Election Commission is given the authority to conduct elections for municipal bodies. These state election commissions are headed by a state election commissioner appointed by the governor of the state. And the functioning of this body is regulated by the law passed by the state legislature. Be it the tenure, the term of the election commissioners, the overall functioning of the election commission is determined by a law passed with the state legislature. But however, state election commissioners cannot be easily removed by the state government. To guarantee their independence, to ensure that it remains an independent constitutional body which can conduct free and fair elections for local bodies, the state election commissioners are given the same degree of protection as that of a judge of a high court. So if a state election commissioner has to be removed by the state government, right, the same process on the grounds that a judge of a high court has to be removed, the same process has to be followed. Clear? So these are some basic facts. Next, on page 10, we have an article referring to India-Greek relations. The foreign minister of Greece is visiting India to interact with India's foreign minister. So during this important visit, there have been a lot of deliberations on India-Greek relations, which is gaining a lot of prominence and importance of late. India has prioritized this part of Europe, central and eastern parts of Europe in recent times. Our ties with countries like Greece, Croatia, Poland has really improved in the recent years, and there's a lot of potential for this relationship. So the Greek foreign minister has mainly focused on one topic, which is the IMEC corridor, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor that was announced in 2023 during the G20 summit that was hosted by India. One of the big outcomes of the G20 in 2023, which was hosted by India, was the announcement of the IMEC trade corridor, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. So to link Indian ports with Middle Eastern ports in UAE, use the land corridors, the railway networks in Saudi Arabia to connect with Jordan and then Israel, and with strategic ports like Haifa port in Israel, and link them through the Mediterranean with Greece and Italy, to link further with France, Germany and across Europe. So that is the ambitious project backed by the US, backed by European Union, France and Germany, that includes India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Israel and others. So Greece will be a key component of this project. But unfortunately, there has been no progress on the IMEC project, because within a month after its announcement, right, it was announced in September 2023, within few weeks, the deadly attack was carried out by Hamas in October 2023, triggering the Gaza war, which has destabilized the West Asia region. So there has not been any opportunity to think about the IMEC project which has been proposed or to take it forward. But the Greek foreign minister believes that IMEC has great potential, that India, Greece and other countries need to work together to take forward the IMEC project. Now, why am I discussing this article? See, the article itself is not too important, but in this article, the Greek foreign minister refers to two important Greek ports, the Kavala port and the Volos port, which is in the news. So UPSC might ask a map-based question regarding the location of these strategic ports in Greece. So please make a note of these locations. The Greek foreign minister has said that Greek ports, which have been relevant since ancient times. For example, you might have heard about the Piraeus port, which has been an ancient link between India and the Greek civilization. So there are important ports like Volos over here, Kavala over here. You need to know the names and locations of these ports. So please mark the locations. Mykonos over here. So the IMEC corridor can link with these projects. See, India's Adani ports already has control over two important ports which are part of IMEC project. One is the Mundra port in Gujarat, the other is the Haifa port in Israel. There are reports that Adani Group is interested in developing Volos and Kavala port in Greece as well. And Greece has welcomed this Indian involvement. So these strategic ports of Greece will be important for the success of the IMEC project. So please mark the location. Now, can you take up one exercise? Can you identify these water bodies present around Greece? There are important seas that are present here. There are a total of 4 seas that are present here, right? These waters. Can you identify the names of these seas and mention that in the comments? Which is the sea present over here, over here, over here, and over here? In total, there are 4 seas that are present here around these ports. Please find out the names of these seas, these waters. They are strategically very important. Then coming to the next article. The US is looking to sell the Stryker infantry vehicle and the Javelin anti-tank guided missile to India. Indian Army is interested to procure these American weapons to be deployed in the Himalayan heights, particularly against Pakistan and China. Stryker, which you can see here in this image, is an infantry vehicle which can carry not only few troops but can carry ammunition as well. And it's a reinforced vehicle which can withstand any ammunition fire, any explosion as well, and it can be used to fire the Javelin. The Javelin, which is a anti-tank guided missile, specifically to target enemy tanks and tank regiments and infantry units. Javelin ATGM, anti-tank guided missile, can be very effective. So Indian Army is considering this, but however, there are some concerns which have come up during the trials. Recently, trials were conducted by General Dynamics, which is the American defense manufacturer that has developed Stryker and the Javelin missile. But when it functioned in the high altitude region of Ladakh, there were some shortcomings which India has flagged. So we've asked for retrials and a re-demonstration. So India might go ahead with the deal, and we might sign the agreement during upcoming visit of Prime Minister Modi when he meets Donald Trump next week. That's why the upcoming visit is very crucial and important. So Stryker would be for co-production, where some would be directly bought from US, from General Dynamics. Rest would be produced in India domestically as per Make in India initiative and Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative of Prime Minister Modi. Javelin ATGM, again, Indian Army is not entirely convinced as of now, but if retrials go through and if US provides a good deal, India might go ahead and procure these armaments for the Indian Army. Then coming to the last article, just a small update. Argentina has joined United States in exiting World Health Organization. The Argentinian leader, Javier Milei, is a very close follower and a friend of Donald Trump. Both are from the far right-wing ideology and generally they follow the same footsteps. It was the same Argentinian leader who pulled Argentina away from the BRICS grouping. Argentina was supposed to join BRICS as a member with other countries like Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia and others. But at the last minute, Argentina rejected the membership for BRICS because there was a change of government. A far right-wing leader, Javier Milei, won the election, and given their proximity to the US and the right wing in the United States, Javier Milei withdrew from the BRICS membership. So now he is following the footsteps of Donald Trump, citing the ineffectiveness of WHO in handling the global pandemic, the COVID-19, and how WHO was ineffective and how it threatened sovereignty of several nations. Right? Argentina has decided to exit from World Health Organization. So this represents the weakening of this critical global organization. Right? So that is something you need to note down. We've already discussed the impact of US withdrawing from WHO in previous classes. So this is another update for you. So on this note, I conclude my discussion for today. We have completed all the topics in complete detail. Essentially, you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. You just have to revise these topics. Join our official Telegram channel because we'll have a quiz on these topics so you can practice some questions as well. And join my official channel as well. The link is in the video description. I'll be sharing the PDF of the session after the class ends. So I hope you guys have liked and understood everything. That's it from my side. Thanks for watching. Do press the like button. Let me know what you think in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Have a good day.